What's good, guys? Fantasy Joe back here with my Week 2 waiver wire video. If you guys are new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button. If you have any questions or comments, drop them in the comment section down below. I'll respond as always. So, waiver wire this week. Week 1 is always a massive, or post Week 1 heading into Week 2. Always one of the biggest waiver wire videos of the year. Just so much unknown and so much potential available with a lot of these players. I'm going to start with one. Justin Fields at quarterback. He's not my top ad overall, but if you need a quarterback, especially you need a guy for a week, or if, you need just a solid option, Justin Fields, I think, is an absolute smash grab. He had 14 carries this last week. He didn't turn into many points. I had less than 12. But, like I said, 14 carries for 57 yards. He plays Denver this week. 17 for 24 as well. Pretty efficient as far as throwing the ball goes. He had some decent bad misses watching that game, though. But, a guy I would bet on 14 rushing attempts. I mean, you bet on that, things like that for fantasy football success. Justin Fields, Stafford's in a good matchup as well against Arizona. Jared Goff, I've seen out there in leagues. I would absolutely add him. If you want to go after Baker Mayfield, playing Detroit this week, much tougher matchup than the Commanders. I would probably want to wait one more week on Baker, but depending on your league, you might not have that afforded to you to be able to wait and sit back on these guys. I have no problem holding Baker with the week that he just came off of. Moving on to the running back position. So my top ads at running back this week, I've got J.K. Dobbins as my number one. If he is out there in your league, you should be adding J.K. Help if I could type his name in a way they could find it. But J.K. Dobbins. So look at the stat line he had in week 1. 10 for 135. They talked about riding the hot hand. I am a little bit worried about him falling off with the Achilles injuries, similar to how we saw the Jaguars running back a few years ago, whose name is escaping me at the moment. I will come back to me. James Robinson. The way that he started the year coming off an Achilles injury, started very hot, and then it all kind of fell apart. That worries me a little bit with Dobbins, but you have to take that type of risk in fantasy football. I'll talk about another guy out there that I think is probably next up after him. It's Jordan Mason. I don't know that he's going to start this next week. I actually probably think Christian McCaffrey does. But we saw how high the ceiling is with him. 147 rushing yards, 28 carries, 5.3 per. Didn't catch a ton of passes, but cashed in a major way for fantasy football. Christian McCaffrey missed his time. You can plug him in each and every week as an RB1, and not just an RB1, but a top-tier RB1. That is something that doesn't really float around on waiver wires very often. Moving on to our next guy that I'm going to point out, a running back here, Tank Bigsby. Involved, had split the carries with ETN this last week, had more rushing yards. We finally saw him be productive in a game. 6.1 per. It's way too early to tell to be all in on Tank, but it's not too early to see that they are planning on utilizing him. They've already done it. He's been successful. I just think there's a lot more upside there than people think. Another name at the running back position, Bucky Irving. This last week was pretty solid. 9 for 62, great. 2 for 14, not bad at all. But he's already involved week 1, and I think that could just grow as the year goes on. We've seen Rashad White be very ineffective these last recent years. If I can't get, Tank Bigsby, I'm going after Bucky Irving, and I think they're in the same tier to me. I would put J.K. and Jordan Mason in a tier above those guys, and then I would put the Tank Bigsby in the Bucky Irving tier, just because the upside is still so high for Jordan Mason. These guys are just sharing roles. It's a guy you could throw out there, but it's kind of a scary play too. Looking at another guy on here, Zach Charbonnet, a very talented player, and I think the thing with him, when you look at his stats, is just the upside that he is afforded if something happens to Ken Walker. He's very talented as well, but didn't do a whole lot last week efficiency-wise or volume-wise. 10 touches isn't bad, though, but caught the touchdown, and Ken Walker has a core injury already. If that grows into more, or if he ends up missing time with that injury, Charbonnet shoots up the board. So I think he is a valuable piece out there in a lot of leagues. But we'll throw out 2 other names real quick. Justice Hill, I think another name that is worth owning. He's going to be involved, especially I think that his stats were a little boosted this last week because we saw Baltimore be losing most of that game. That's probably not going to happen most weeks. We're going to see more Derrick Henry, but still, 6 receptions, backs that can do things like that. Only 1 carry, so that's not the best. But Just an option. Things are going to get nasty out there running backs. We got people in deep leagues. Jaleel McLaughlin, another name to keep an eye out there, but wasn't even the best this last week. But Javonte Williams was pretty poor. Opens up more opportunity for him, and I think he is a good running back. So I think there will be more opportunity for him moving forward. Heading over to the wide receiver position, just want to throw out a few names. If this guy's available, Jameson Williams being this guy, if Jameson Williams is out there, he's a must grab. He'd probably be my number one ad if I was over all of these guys. I would probably go Jameson Williams if he's out there. He's not available in a ton of leagues, so but 5 for 121 on 9 targets, got a carry as well. He should be fantastic. He is the number 2 for the Detroit Lions. We've seen that role be valuable before, and he has a ton of talent, explosion, and just things that position didn't have before, which is why I'm very excited about him moving forward. My top ad of the other guys, the guys that aren't super rostered to me, is Brandon Cooks. 7 targets in week 1. Jake Ferguson's banged up, could miss this week, maybe not, but no matter what, he's not going to be 100%. I think this just leads to a bigger role for Brandon Cooks already. And we saw from the bye week last year, post-bye for the Dallas Cowboys last year, he's a wide receiver 25. Now you're telling me more of the options around him are more banged up. I am going to invest in that. I think Cooks is an absolute great ad if you're looking for a guy for a few weeks, and he'll still have standalone value after that as well. Another name to throw out there, he looks like the number 2 in this New Orleans offense, so he's going to be very valuable and work well with Derek Carr, especially throwing the ball deep. Rashid Shaheed. 5 targets, but I think that number could go up. The reason being they were kicking the Carolina Panthers out of the stadium. Let's just put it that way. They were getting after him. They didn't really need to throw much. They didn't need to be aggressive. I think that, especially over these next coming schedules, we see Dallas, Philly, Atlanta, Kansas City. I think more often than not that the New Orleans Saints are going to be trailing in those games, and to give Rashid Shaheed a lot of opportunities to get more targets. I think he is a valuable guy moving forward. Wan'Dale Robinson, another guy. He's a little bit of a deeper ad, but he did have 12 targets in week 1. As you can see right there, that's an excellent number. Didn't do much with them, 6 for 44, but something to be out there and know you could do a lot worse than that at a lot of positions. Moving on to tight end, it's Isaiah Likely. 12 targets, 111 yards this first week, scored a touchdown, 9 receptions, was an inch away from 2 touchdowns as well. Yeah, you can go ahead, add him to your roster. Although I do think a lot of it had to do with the Kansas City matchup, I still think he's going to be involved each and every week. Mark Andrews is the name that I want to own there, or the name that I want the most there still. But Isaiah Likely can be good for fantasy football. There were talks about him being the number 2 tight end, using him more, having 2 tight ends in the field. I think what was clear to me from week 1 was that he is that number 2, number 3 option in a passing game, and that's valuable for fantasy football in this offense where they throw the ball a lot more with Lamar Jackson, and that's something I'm willing to invest in moving forward, and Likely looks fantastic on the field. Another name I'll throw out there, Taysom Hill. Not a ton of reason to utilize him in this last game, but the way I see things moving forward, he had 1 reception, not worried about that, but 5 carries is nice. I think he's going to turn that into some touchdowns this year and really help with the tight end position, especially a lot of guys are down and hurt right now. This one's a little bit nastier. Colby Parkinson. This one's just, he's going to get the ball. He's going to get 5 targets, maybe more. Tight end is nasty. It gets dirty down there. But those are some names. I wanted to give you guys some options. I'll throw out a few more names for some deeper leagues. This one more of a keep an eye on. Tucker Kraft was the guy for the Packers, not Luke Musgrave, which was unexpected in week 1. But this just makes me think add Tucker Kraft in a few weeks when Jordan Love comes back. But just keep that note. I'm going to obviously be here to tell you guys that when it happens. But let's talk some of the top defenses. The Chargers defense to me is the top ad. They play Carolina this week, Pittsburgh the next week. That's fantastic. Then I would probably put the Texans as they play Chicago this week. We saw Caleb Williams looked awful. And then I would probably go the Commanders defense as they play the New York Giants. And I also think you can probably roll out the Giants defense against the Commanders if you really wanted to. But I would rather play Commanders versus Giants personally. But a lot of good defensive matchups this week, or a lot of good defenses that you can add and stream. If you guys have any questions, you can drop them in the comment section down below. I respond to all questions. Need help in your league? I got you guys, whatever the question may be. But I really appreciate you guys watching the videos. Please hit that subscribe button. Stick around. We're going to be doing buy low, sell high tomorrow as well. Ton of fantasy content coming your guys' way. If you want to bring home that fantasy championship, hit that subscribe button.